Welcome to the 1662 Fellowship of North America, where we promote the historic Anglican Formularies as the theological center of gravity for Orthodox Anglicanism in North America. I'm Isaac Rayburg, the Archdeacon for Liturgy in the Anglican Diocese of All Nations and the rector of All Saints Anglican Church in San Antonio, Texas. And we're going to continue today our interview with Stephen Wedgeworth, the rector of Christ Church Anglican in South Bend, Indiana. Last time in the interview, he was speaking about his journey from Presbyterianism into Anglicanism and how our historic formularies helped that journey and really found him his ecclesiastical home. And today we're going to be talking about his parish, Christ Church in South Bend, Indiana. And again, this is a continuation of the interview we did previously. And please enjoy. As always, like and subscribe if this has been helpful. We continue now with our interview with Stephen Wedgeworth. Thank you. So now tell us about Christ Church a bit. So it was this kind of more of a revitalization, or was it a new plant? I know I had been familiar with the church's Twitter handle from around the time that you were coming in, maybe a little bit before.
Yeah, so it was a church plant. It did not exist at all. And I was not here at the original founding. So it was really the product of three families who had recently relocated to South Bend. And two out of those three founding families are still quite active in sort of Anglican theological discourse, magazines, online essays and articles, writing books, and active in diocesan and provincial actions. So our warden is Sam Bray. He's our assistant chancellor at the diocese level. He's also been a voice of assistance and feedback to the bishops at the provincial level. The junior warden is Robert Ramsey, who had worked as an editor at the North American Anglican, now is doing publications of North American Episcopal history. And so there'll be books coming out that he's got a hand in now. And so they were the ones who founded the church. They find themselves moving together. There's not really a church that's exactly the right fit for them. And so they thought, why don't we try to start something here in South Bend? And unfortunately, the timing was beyond their ability to predict, but it was terrible timing because within a year you had the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And so how are you going to advertise this new church, get people to visit when people aren't even allowed to come indoors for a while? And, it's just, so it was really a tough go, and had a bit of, you might say, a false start with their church plant.
Yeah, that makes sense. We had one that we were planting as an archdeaconry that, the plan was to start Palm Sunday of 2020, and that didn't work so well, obviously.
Right. So I arrived on January 1st of 2022, really. So it was like right at the start of the new year. And when I got here, it was still a church plant in many ways. It was a small church trying to just get itself established. But in God's grace, in the last 2 years, we've had some pretty good growth by way of new additions, and we've really, I think, stepped into a position where we're not really a church plant anymore. We're a young church, still a church that is looking forward and wants to continue to be on the move. But I would say we're much more of an established, stable church now. We have enough of the ingredients that you're looking for, right? We have enough critical mass. We have people that can do volunteer work. We actually were able to have a nursery a few weeks ago. And so we have a nursery option for people with little ones. So yeah, we're starting to step into that role of a more established church now.
Oh, that's excellent. And it sounds like a focus on the formularies has always been a part of the DNA of Christ Church. How's that worked out since you've been there?
Yeah, so since we're a church plant rather than a continuing institution, it gave us the freedom to just jump in.
That idea of freedom is huge.
We didn't have to try to take some pre-existing history and legacy and then convince people that they need to change or to redefine anything. We just got to here's what we want to do. Boom. And so they were using the 1662 prayer book before I got here. So
Okay.
yeah, so I show up and they here you go. And honestly, as I told you, I was learning about these things, and so I'm receiving some measure of education prior to my arrival. I go through the bishop to be approved by him as to be qualified to be a priest in the diocese. But if
Mhm.
I'm going to come to this church who uses this liturgy, I better learn what that's all about. And so, for really 6 to 8 months before I actually got to South Bend, I was on Zoom calls, reading books, working through literature to really make sure I understood what is the 1662 Book of Common Prayer, what is this classical Reformation formulary heritage, what does that mean? So it was the church here uh, formed me as much as I am now able to form them. It's definitely a reciprocal two-way street.
Uh, so, what have been some challenges that you've encountered using the formularies in a relatively new church? I mean, the experts always say you'll never be able to plant a church or get a church growing using these and thous and these documents that nobody's really been using in North America for so long. But
Mm-hmm.
y'all seem to be doing pretty well. So, what have been some challenges that you've had?
Yeah, so I would say the challenges really don't come from the old language. I think that's a misconception.
Hmm.
Of all the issues that we face where people have issues, it's never been that. They've never said, I just don't like the fact that you use the King James or something. Honestly, if you just think about it as an American, the majority of American churches, if they're not still using King James, they were even as recently as the 90s. I grew up in a Southern Baptist church in Mississippi, 80s and 90s. We used the King
Hmm.
James from the pulpit the whole time. Most working class churches are still King James. Most African American churches are King James. And so it's really a misconception that the old sounding language is going to be the problem. What are the problems we face? Well, I would say challenges we face, one, and I think most prayer book, classic, traditional Anglicans are all going to have this challenge. People walk in and they're just not sure about the concept of liturgy.
Yeah, yeah. There's
You
just
know,
always a liturgical learning curve
yeah,
in our society. Yeah.
hey, you do the same service basically every week, and you just say the same words every week. That's probably the more common challenge.
And the older prayer books don't make that challenge any worse. I mean, it's the
Right.
same challenge regardless of what edition you're going to use.
Exactly, exactly. So the way that we tried to counteract that is a few things. In the 1662, there are elements that are built in with the option that they can shift and change. If you're doing morning prayer, you have a variety of opening sentences to be read. You have obviously the Psalms and the lessons are going to change. You can add or subtract, well, should not subtract, but you can do more or less extra collects and prayers and parts of the service. And so when things can change, we do change them from time to time, and we'll explain what's being changed. The canticles will change between Te Deum and Benedicite. And I've tried, with the bishop's permission and everyone's approval, to find also suitable paraphrases. So the Benedicite will say that it's quite long. So
Yeah.
I've not been bold enough to try to chant or sing the Benedicite as printed, but we did find some paraphrase versions of the Benedicite and work together to set them to tunes that are quite singable. And it's been a huge hit. It's been really great. And then for the Jubilate Deo, you can sing All People That on Earth Do Dwell.
Hmm.
Everybody knows that. So, making sure that when it's possible to put something in that's familiar, that's accessible, but it still works with the flow of the service, we do that. So that's
Yeah.
one way to try to overcome it.
Holy God, we praise thy name for the Te Deum, for
Yeah,
example.
That's right. And we still are going to do the literal original ones as well, but we just
Hmm.
have that option to go back and forth to give people something a little bit fresh and to get their mind turning. Oh, that's what we've been saying. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, yeah, so some change when you can, some explanation. Also, I try to do, and I think that you do a good job of this as well, because I've visited your church and I've watched you online. When it is time for the sermon, or when it is time for the parish notices. I don't feel the burden to stay in super high mode and speak very
Right.
formally. At those moments, I can drop down, casual, conversational at times, making rapport with the congregation. And I find that after 2 or 3 weeks, the people figure that out. They go, oh, okay, there's going to be a really formal, serious moment here where we have to straighten up our shoulders. But then there'll be a moment in the service where it's a little more relaxed, and that helps them get over that fear of a formal liturgy.
So do you think it's for y'all, it's about a 2 or 3 week learning curve for most visitors?
I think so. Yeah, I think the first week is sort of, whoa, I've never seen anything like
Oh
this.
yeah.
What's going on? But then by the second week, okay, I'm starting to get it. And then, yeah, about the third week, you're pretty much going to be able to do it. We did, though, to make things easier. I think this was a brilliant move, and it was done before I got here. We have the physical, BCPs. That's what we got out. But we also have a paperback service booklet, sort of a
Hmm.
guide, and it just cuts right to the essentials. So this is what you in the pew will be expected to say. This is when it's coming. You'll say this, and they'll in the sidebar there'll be short little explanations. Why are we saying this prayer? Well, it goes back to this date, has these purposes, and many people have commented that that service booklet was really essential. They said that helped me understand what was going on. That since you up front aren't telling me each one of these items, but it was here on the paper, I could read it,
Hmm.
and that made it easier and also set them at ease. We also have a line in there, which I think also I've heard several people mention because they're not coming from Anglican backgrounds. It says, "We worship here at Christ Church um, as a means to an end." And so we use the liturgy to get you to the goal of glorifying God and praising Him. And
That's really important. It's not the liturgy for the sake of the liturgy. Yeah.
yeah, and so I've had several people comment on how that just helped them trust the process, right? Once they saw that line, they said, oh, okay, I can give this a chance and
Yeah.
see how it goes.
And so, are those booklets something that y'all made in house, or is that something that you were able to find someone had made those up? I know there's a ton of resources on the FAQ for IVP's website on the 1662 International, but this is something that different, right?
Yeah, this is just for our parish. It was put together by our wardens. I'm not sure what software program they use, but yeah, basically create a little 6 to 8 page booklet, and then we have a local printing company in town. They print them out, and we use these from week to week. So
Okay.
it's not a one and done thing. We hand them out, but then we ask people to return them to the book table at the end of the service. And so we probably have to do maybe 3 or 4 rounds of print per year, as folks will invariably take one home or fold it up, and it'll get dirty. You'll have to replace them. So maybe 3 times a year or so we'll have new rounds of printing, but overall they're week to week, used week to week.
We'll go ahead and stop here the interview and pick up again with the last part next time. This is going to be a 3-part interview because we do like to keep things nice and bite-sized on the podcast. But again, this has been the 1662 Fellowship of North America. If this has been helpful, please do like and subscribe, and also make sure to follow Stephen and Christ Church on the various socials as well. You will be benefited if you do. God bless, and thank you so much.